This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. Oops, no. Well, anyway, actually, yeah, it is the Sports Catastrophe birthday boy for February the 28th. And this guy is a hockey player, a legend who was very highly touted. But once he got to the NHL, things unraveled. Anyway, he played in the OHL for Oshawa. He could have played for Sault Ste. Marie, but his parents, and I'll get more on that later, wanted him to play closer to home, so he was traded to Oshawa. And then he was a great player for the Oshawa Generals, won the Memorial Cup with them over my Kitchener Rangers. Bitterness? Yes, of course. Anywho, he was the outstanding player in the CHL, Canadian Hockey League, in 91, and it looked like he was the number one overall pick. He was the number one overall pick in 1991, but refused to play for the team that drafted him, so he forced a trade the next year to another team. Unfortunately, concussions would ruin his career and all that, despite winning the Hart Trophy as MVP. Lindros is the highest all-time points leader at the World Juniors with 31 points, which is pretty good for Canadian stuff, winning 2 gold medals for the juniors. He was inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2016, and his number 88 was finally retired by the Flyers in 2018. He is Eric Lindros, who's now 49. So anyway, Lindros' career started off rocky. In junior, he was good. He was dominant, and the NHL was licking their lips, waiting for Lindros to be draft eligible in 1991. So he's known as the Big E. He actually had a baseball card as a third baseman for the Toronto Blue Jays. Schools of deal with score. Refused to sign with Sault Ste. Marie. So Lindros was traded to Oshawa instead, playing 3 years for the Generals, getting them to the Memorial Cup in 1990 against the Kitchener Rangers, pissing me off. Although I was only 5 years old at the time. But, when I got older, I got more pissed off. Unfortunately, the problem with Lindros was that his parents, Carl and Bonnie, basically were kind of the prototypical hockey helicopter parents, if you will. And they would berate the coach for little minor details and all that. And they would yell at the team for not allowing to score or having good line mates. Unfortunately, Lindros was under their thumb and all that. Anyway, Lindros was basically the best player around. Unfortunately, Oshawa fell to Sault Ste. Marie in the OHL finals for a trip to the Memorial Cup. Lindros had a bad attitude towards the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. Oshawa did retire his number 88. Anyway, it was now time for the 91 draft. Lindros definitely was going to be number 1. The worst team would pick him. And the Leafs were terrible in 1991. But they lost the Turtle Derby to Quebec, as the Nordiques won the Turtle Derby. And I think Quebec purposely traded away good players to other teams for bad players so that they could get the number 1 pick. Remember, the draft lottery didn't start till 95 in the NHL. So Quebec had the first pick. Toronto didn't even have the second pick because the San Jose Sharks were an expansion team and they got into the 2 slot. So Quebec picked number 1 and Eric Lindros was the number 1 pick. Normally, Lindros, it would be great to be a number 1 overall pick in the NHL, unless you're Brian Lawton. But anyway, Lindros was picked by Quebec, but Lindros said he would never play for the Nordiques, citing the ownership. Unfortunately, citing the ownership, when Lindros says that, talked about the fact that he didn't like the winning spirit in the organization. And Marcel Aubu. Lost in translation was the fact that, Lindros didn't want to play in French Canada. He wanted to play for a better hockey market. Unfortunately, Lindros got badly booed and all that, obviously. Well, the owner, Marcelo Booth, said that Lindros will be in a Nordiques uniform, the only way he'll get in the NHL. Lindros went back to junior for Oshawa, played in the 92 World Juniors. Well, he was hoping for another gold medal after 90 and 91. By 92, they were just flat out terrible. They were like, what, 6th or 7th? One of the most pathetic performances in Canadian history. The strange thing is, the 93 team won the gold. Did they win gold? Or did they lose to Sweden? I can't remember. 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh no, they won the gold in 93 because they had that 5-peat in 97. Anywho, so Lindros even played in the 92 Winter Olympics, scoring a shootout goal. Yes, the shootouts happened to take down Germany. Canada took silver behind the Russians. Anyway, the Nordiques were hoping not to trade Lindros, but Lindros was playing hardball, ending out that Carl and Bonnie were up to something. But anyway, under pressure from the NHL, Quebec knew they had to trade him, or else risk losing him in the 93 NHL draft because they couldn't resign him. So anyway, the Nordiques would trade. They had a trade deal with the Flyers and the Rangers. So Lindros would be in a better hockey market. Unfortunately, they both were at the same time, and Quebec claimed they got both teams. A arbitrator by the name of Larry Bertuzzi, and yes, he's related to Todd Bertuzzi, ruled in favor of the Flyers because the Flyers Nordiques trade, was made 80 minutes before the Rangers agreement. So anyway, since the Flyers used their 1992 pick on Ryan Sittler, who was kind of a bust, and Quebec did not like Ryan Sittler, jealous much, even though he's Daryl Sittler's son, the Flyers and Nordiques went on the substitution and added to the trade. They added the Flyers' 94 first-round pick to Quebec and alongside Chris Simon. Unfortunately, Chris Simon would be known as a goon and all that. Anyway, so the Flyers would get Lindros, and the Nordiques would receive Steve Duchesne, Ron Hextall, Kenny Hoffman, I say Kenny, it's Kerry Hoffman, Mike Ricci, the rights to Peter Forsberg, and it was supposed to be the first round pick in 92 and 93. But because the Flyers already made the pick and all that, didn't work out. And $15 million. So, did the trade help Quebec? It sure did, although it would take him to get to Colorado for the deal to really blow up in Philly's face. Steve Duchesne was okay for Quebec. He was decent. Ron Hextall had 1 year with Quebec and then decided to leave, and he went to the Islanders and then back to Philly. Kerry Hoffman, bleh. Mike Ricci, he was decent in Quebec / Colorado. And the rights to Peter Forsberg, that's the huge one because Peter Forsberg was this big prospect for the Flyers had. Traded him to Quebec. A couple years later, Forsberg came to the NHL and won the Calder. And he was pretty good. Now, the trade actually. Now, the New York trade was supposed to be just as big. The Rangers were going to give up Tony Amonte, Alex Kovalev, John Van Beesbroek, Doug Weight, 3 first-round picks, and $12 million. If Van Beesbroek was actually declared an unrestricted free agent, he would not be in the deal. It would have been James Patrick. So the problem was that, that would have been huge. Would the Rangers have won the 94 Cup without that, if that Lindros trade came? I doubt that highly. Well, Tony Amonte was used as a bargaining piece to get Brian Noonan and Stefan Matteau at the 94 trade deadline. Alex Kovalev was okay for the Rangers, but Mike Keenan wrote him apart. John Van Beesbroek would later be traded in 93 to the Vancouver Canucks for Doug Lister, so that Van Beesbroek can be picked in the 93 expansion draft by the Panthers. Doug Weight was leveraged to get Craig McTavish, if memory serves me right. And that would have been huge. And James Patrick did go to Hartford a few years later, kind of the trade that got Steve Larmer headed to Rangerland. So yeah, the Rangers actually ended up winning by not making that trade, in a sense. So Lindros had his physical strength and playmaking ability. He was named Flyers captain in 94 and did well. He got the Hart Trophy for MVP in 95 after doing so well, getting the Flyers to their first playoff appearance in 6 years and a conference finals appearance where they lost to the Devils. '97, the Flyers were better. They got to the Stanley Cup Finals, taking care of Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and the Rangers in 5 games apiece. So they only lost 3 times on their way to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Red Wings. Red Wings were trying to aim to break that 42-year drought and the longest current drought at that time. The Rangers had a 54-year drought, but they broke it in '94. So anyway, Detroit now had the longest drought. Eric Lindros was held in check. He only scored 1 goal in the finals, and that was Game 4 in the third period. Scotty Bowman actually used the finesse defensive pair of Nick Lidstrom and Larry Murphy against Lindros' Legion of Doom line instead of sending out Vladdy Konstantinov for a physical confrontation. It worked. The Red Wings swept the Flyers in 4 games. And it's the closest Lindros got to a Stanley Cup final. Lindros was named the 54th best player out of the 100 greatest players of all time for Hockey News' 50th anniversary, which was amazing. Unfortunately, Lindros would have a bad relationship with Bobby Clark, who was the GM of the Flyers. They feuded in the media. Clark questioned his toughness, but Lindros had to spend time on the injured reserve because of a series of concussions. In fact, he nearly died in Nashville. Lindros got a rib injury, but then Keith Jones, his teammate, discovered Lindros lying in a tub, pale and cold. But it was discovered that Lindros had a collapsed lung because of the internal bleeding of his chest wall. Anyway, yeah. So Lindros got to Philadelphia okay and all that. Yeah, his concussions were huge. In 2000, Lindros had his last year as a Flyer. He suffered his second concussion of the year in March. And Lindros criticized the team's trainers for failing to diagnose concussion. Clark was upset and stripped Lindros of his captaincy. Lindros would sit out the rest of the regular season, and suffered another concussion while rehabbing. That's not good. Lindros came in for Game 6 of the conference finals against the Devils. And then in Game 7, it was terrible. Flyers were looking to avoid having that 3-1 series lead they had against the Devils deteriorate. Unfortunately, he had his head down over the blue line, and Scott Stevens lowered his shoulder into Lindros, knocking him unconscious and getting another concussion. Flyers would lose Game 7 2-1. Who was the guy? There was I would say Selapuka, but no. I forget who Elias. Yeah, I think it was Patrick Elias who was the hero, scoring both goals for the Devils in Game 7. I'm probably wrong. Anyhow, the Flyers choked that 3-1 series lead and could have been in the Stanley Cup Finals. The Devils would go on to win the Stanley Cup against Dallas. Lindros was a restricted free agent, and he refused a qualifying offer. Lindros was cleared to play in December, and he wanted to head to Toronto, but the Flyers refused to deal his rights, and Lindros had to sit out the season. Bobby Clark finally relented and traded Lindros to the Rangers in 2001 for Jan Hlavek, Kim Janssen, Pavel Brandl, and a third-round pick. The Rangers actually did quite well because Pavel Brandl, they stupidly took him in the 5th round. They took him with the 5th pick in 1999. Kim Janssen was better in Philly, and Jan Hlavek wasn't really that good player. But the Rangers would also receive a first-round pick in 2003 if Lindros were to suffer a concussion in the preseason or the first 50 games of the regular season. Really, you're banking on you wanted a first-round pick if Lindros got another concussion? Terrific. But unfortunately, he didn't. He got 73 points in 72 games. So that wasn't so bad. 2003, he was injury-free. His first injury-free season of his career. Fuck. Scoring only 53 points. So but he got another concussion in 2004. And then, Lindros signed a 1-year deal with the Leafs for 2005. Finally, he's back in Toronto. He would only score 22 points in 32 games and suffer a ligament tear in his left wrist. Lindros was signed a 1-year deal for Dallas in 2006. only scoring 26 points in 49 games. Lindros had to retire in 2007. So Lindros was part of the 2002 Olympic team that won gold, if you must know. Part of the 98 Winter Olympics team that choked and took fourth. Lindros donated $5 million to the London Health Sciences Centre, which was good. All that. He played in the alumni game in 2011. Anyway, Lindros in 2016 got into the Hockey Hall of Fame. He had a famous interview on French Canadian TV in 2017. He opened up about his time being drafted by Nordiques. He said he had no problem with Quebec City or the people because his wife is French Canadian. Really? But anyway, he stated that the real reason he didn't was that because he didn't respect Marcel Aubut and criticized Aubut. But in the interview, he was given the Nordique sweater. So Lindros was the oldest son of Carl and Bonnie. Of course, those two were kind of helicopter parents in a sense. His father actually had a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Western, and he even was drafted in the CFL draft by the Eskimos in 1970, but he became a chartered accountant. And Lindros' mother, Bonnie, was a registered nurse. Lindros' brother, Brett, played in the NHL with the Islanders, but didn't do so well. Lindros in 2012 would marry Kina LaMarche from Quebec. They have 3 children, Carl, Sophie, and Ryan. And they currently live in Toronto. They're actually close friends with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. Yes, Kurt Russell, the guy who played Herb Brooks in Miracle. Both families own a cottage in Muskoka. Wow, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell up in Muskoka. That's nice. So anyway, his NHL career, only 760 games. Man, concussions really ruined him. And 865 points, 57 points in 53 playoff games. And I love you too. Or anyway, junior. He was a junior legend. He won the Hart in '95. He didn't win the Calder in '93. That was Steve Mussolini for his 76 goal season. And he was an All-Star 7 times. So he did pretty well. You know, great player in World Juniors, the best in Canadian history by points. All that. Anyway, Lindros was a key player in the NHL market. Believe it. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.